Well, we have a very exciting video for you today here on Kevin Talks Tech. Today, we are introducing our brand new interview series, talking with people about the world of technology and how they are involved with it. And I'm so excited to welcome in my very first guest, Jenny Anderson. And not only just a guest here on Kevin Talks Tech, but a good friend of mine, somebody who I've known, probably 9 years, 10 years?
Yeah.
Somewhere
Wow.
around there.
Mm-hmm.
We worked together back in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, the local television scene together. A lot of fun back in those days. And you've been doing some big things right now. She is the author of 1-2-3 Ice Fishing, a brand new kids book. She is also known as the girl of 10,000 lakes online. Thank you so much again, Jenny, for being here, and great to see you again.
I am honored to be here, Kevin, and I'm really excited to talk about my book, 1-2-3 Ice Fishing. I know we're talking about technology, but there's so much technology involved in writing an actual written physical copy of a book too. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Absolutely. I'm so excited for it. Well, let's dive in first. First off, just kind of give us a lay of the land. Tell us a little bit about what 1-2-3 Ice Fishing is all about.
Yeah, so 1-2-3 Ice Fishing is a counting book for kids about ice fishing. So it's all about teaching kids about the basics of ice fishing, the gear that's involved in ice fishing, what sort of lures you might use, tip ups, the different kinds of fish that are in our Minnesota lakes here. And then in the end, it's really fun because the kids can see how their fish becomes fish fry. So yeah, it's just a really fun way to introduce your little ones to the sport of ice fishing and getting them outdoors and interested in exploring the world around them. And I think parents especially love it because they want to introduce their kids to the outdoors. And if it's a tradition that they already do, like ice fishing, this is a really tangible, easy way to introduce your babies, your toddlers, your kids who don't know about ice fishing to what it's all about.
And what was the inspiration behind creating the book?
Yeah, so, let's go back to when the pandemic first started. It was like March, I think, and I was going stir crazy, much like everyone else. And, I'm a creative person. I know you are too. Like, I needed a creative venue of some kind to just like let my energy loose. So it was also the end of ice fishing season. So I was like, a little bit bored, and Harlan, my son, and I were like going on walks outside, and I was like, I wish I could teach him about ice fishing still. And so I thought about writing a book. There really wasn't anything out there to do that. And so I wrote one on my iPhone in my notes and worked on it before sending it off to some friends who are actual professional writers. And well, I'll talk about the whole process in a little bit, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much what inspired it, wanting to teach my son about ice fishing.
Well, fantastic. Well, let's dive into that part and talk a little bit about the process. So you self-published this book, and I know a lot of people have kind of been going that route these days. Tell me just a little bit about how that process ultimately works.
Yeah, so there's the option of publishing with the publisher, but it's not easy to do that when you're not a well-known writer already. And so I have a friend named Carson, who I think she works in the publishing industry in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and they do like sort of a more medical focused books genre. So she had a bunch of advice for me and said, because I already have sort of a following on Instagram and Facebook through my blog, Girl of 10,000 Lakes, that I already have that platform, I should just go the self-publishing route because half the battle is marketing. So if you think you can market it yourself, definitely go the self-publishing route. Right. So I wrote the book on my iPhone, sort of tweaked it, perfected it. I wanted it to rhyme. I wanted it to be really simple. That's why I chose like the counting theme. So just for example, it starts off with 1 auger, 2 fishing rods. We're packing up the sled. And then it shows the sled with like
cool.
The different things on there. So kept it simple, made it exactly the way I wanted it. Then I hired on my sister as the illustrator, which is pretty cool just to work with someone that's in your family because it's just more flexible. And I paid her, I contracted her out. And it was really cool to work with her on a professional level. I just never thought I would do that with my sister. So that was neat. And I did like do a call out for other illustrators out there just to see if I could find someone who would be a good match for me. And my sister is really talented. So I ended up going with her. And it was just like a back and forth thing of like her trying to match up my words with like the drawings that I wanted. And you can tell I chose bears because I didn't want to have to deal with like, people and like skin color and that kind of thing. I just wanted it to be something that everyone can kind of relate to, and everyone knows what a bear is, and bears are cute, and and so it's about a mama bear and a baby bear, which is a fun twist as well. So usually you see like dad taking the kid out fishing, but this time it's mom. So it's about me and Harlan.
The illustrations are beautiful. So hats off to your sister. She did such a fantastic job with that. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the software that's involved too, and some of that tech, because I imagine, of course, that you had to kind of get your hands wet in a little bit of that software to do this.
Yes. Yeah. Thankfully, I already had Photoshop, and I had the graphic design skills just with my background and our background in journalism and just the creative world, So once I got the images from my sister, it was my job to sort of lay out the words and the images together in a way that would make sense in a book. I chose an 8x8, 8-inch by 8-inch format just because square is fun. And I wanted a bigger book that kids could like see and lift the flaps. So I laid it out in Photoshop. And I talked to a vendor in China. So this was kind of the tricky part, because you need a printer, and a lot of the printers in the United States, they do contracted work through China anyway. So because it's cheaper. In the end, that's pretty much the reason why people would choose to print in China. So I have to go through Alibaba, which is sort of like the Amazon of the wholesale world with international vendors. So I like researched different printing companies that are based in China and found one that had good reviews, and just did like a bunch of quotes with different companies, but chose this one that had really great reviews and I had a good connection with. And they gave me a quote for around 3,000 bucks is what I ordered. And they told me like exactly what bleed line I needed, which is like the space around the space that would be like cut off if they printed it and cut the book, So making sure there's enough bleed line and bleed space. And yeah, they just kind of showed me what I needed to do to make the lift the flap things happen. So yeah, after laying it all out with my sister, I sent it to them. They wanted, PDF and JPEGs and all that stuff. And they kind of put together a rough draft. Obviously sending it from China to here would take so long. So for proofs, I just had them take a video of the book and they showed me, and I was like, sweet, looks great. Let's do this. And they printed it and shipped it to me from China. It took like a month to ship, and it arrived and looked amazing when it got here. So it all turned out really well. But yeah, going back to software, it was just pretty much Photoshop was my main thing. And then I also put the pages out on Google presentation, like the sort of the PowerPoint thing that Google has in their line of apps. And that's kind of how I had friends review the book. So they could like click through as if it's like a PowerPoint book opening, a digital version of the book. And they just reviewed the presentation, gave me notes and stuff like that before I sent it to the printers to finally print it.
Wow. Well, what a process, but a cool process nonetheless. I honestly, Because I remember we talked a little bit about, you self-publishing this, and I had kind of a whole different vision in my head of how that worked, but that's absolutely amazing. I want to ask just a little bit about the Photoshop, because we very well may have some viewers who have dabbled a little bit in Photoshop or dabbled a little bit with like-minded software. I know there's some, free options out there. When you talk about utilizing Photoshop, what level of skill would you say a person perhaps who might want to do something like this should have?
So for Adobe Photoshop, I mean, you only need the basic skills. Like literally, I just understand layers really well and using text. So I just laid down the image that my sister sent me for the illustrations and then put the text on top of it and kind of adjusted it and played with the colors till I liked how it looked. But I know my sister used Procreate for most of her illustrations just on her iPad. She has an iPad Pro and her little pen that goes with it. And she sketched it all out there and did all the layer work on there and then sent me the JPEGs and PNG files to use. So I don't know, it seems like it's a really good program that illustrators use. So if you know how to use that, awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know at least you've got an option. If you're, skilled and you can utilize that, great. But if not, you can certainly turn and go to somebody who does it, like your sister.
Yes.
We'll throw a little plug her way.
Yeah, let's do that.
Great. Well, tell me just a little bit too, because, as people are watching this right now, they might be inspired. They might say, hey, I can go out and I can create something, as well. Do you have any pieces of advice you'd pass along to people? Any kind of lessons you learned along the way as you went throughout this project?
Definitely just edit. Like you may think the written version of your work is perfect already, but I had like 3 different writer friends, one in particular that works for a newspaper and he does a lot of freelance work, and he just noticed all these grammatical errors that I didn't see. And I think I'm a pretty savvy grammar person, and he caught a bunch of things. So that was so helpful. Also, if accuracy is important for me, like one example is this one page that I have. Let me show you. It's called, okay. So this is a tip up and there's a walleye on it. And when the walleye grabs the bait that was at the end of the tip up, the flag goes up. So originally I didn't have a walleye on there. I had a bluegill, which is like a sunfish. And it's not typical for a bluegill to grab onto the bait that's on a tip up. I just forgot about that one tidbit, and someone who knows the fishing industry really well was like, you should probably replace that bluegill with a walleye. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. So like, a lot of anglers could have been very upset with me that I wasn't being accurate. So I'm glad they caught that. So just be sure to talk to the people who know more than you about the subject to make sure it's accurate before you print out 3,000 copies.
Right. And especially since you're the girl of 10,000 lakes.
That's right. Yeah. I don't want to lose my credibility here. Yeah.
Right. No, you don't want that.
That's probably my number one advice, is just to like make sure everything is accurate and edited to the way you'd want it. And just to be patient. It's a whole process. It took me about 8 months to do the whole thing, which is actually pretty speedy compared to what it might take to work with an actual publisher, because I'm doing all the marketing myself. I'm doing the designing myself. I'm sending it off to the printers myself. So everything's like really expedited on my end, because I don't need to like go through a review process with my publishing team and all that stuff. So I think, yeah, just use that to your advantage, have some patience. The shipping can take a long time. It can take up to a few months. But once you get that book in your hands, the first shipment from UPS or FedEx comes to your house, it's like, oh my gosh, like I published this thing. It was such a surreal moment for me to like see them like backing into our driveway with 33 boxes being like, this is basically like what's left of my books. So we've sold more than half so far of what I ordered. So it's been going really well. And if you can market it yourself like I'm doing, you're gonna profit a lot more, and also just be able to connect with people that already know you.
Exactly. Well, that is an incredible achievement. Because I remember unfortunately due to COVID, you and I haven't had the chance to really see each other and connect as much these days, as is the case with pretty much everybody. And so I was literally just on social media one day flipping through, and I saw that you had written a book, and I was like, "What? Oh my gosh!" And yeah, I'm so proud, and that's an incredible achievement, especially one to write a book and then already to have sold half of what you've produced. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you. And the one thing that I didn't want after the pandemic ends is to look back and think like, what did I do with my time? Like I wanted to make sure I was using that time of being at home in isolation or whatever effectively, and in a way that I'd be proud of when looking back at this time. So I'm glad I did something, I guess.
That's a really good point. And you did. I think it's fantastic, and what you've produced is great. And a lot of great people, a lot of parents are going to be able to educate their kids about the joys of ice fishing. Speaking of ice fishing, speaking of lakes, just to transition here quick from the book over to social, how people can find you. Very easy to find you. You're in a lot of different places. But tell me, in fact, I was at the bank, and you were at the bank on the ATM screen.
I was. Were you at US Bank?
I was at US Bank, and I was like, I think that's Jenny. But it was. How can people ultimately find you, and how can they follow you, and also how can they get the book?
Yeah, so if you search Girl of 10,000 Lakes, that's what I am on every handle. Girl of 10,000 lakes. Wait, 10,000 lakes.
A lot of zeros.
Yes. So Girl of 10,000 Lakes on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter. On Twitter, I'm Girl 10K Lakes because they limit the number of letters you can have in your username.
But it still works.
Yes. And then my blog is girlof10,000lakes.com. I write a lot of content about getting your family involved in the outdoors and how you can get started in just, exploring what's in your local area, and a lot of travel related content. So that's fun. Facebook, Girl 10,000 Lakes. And then the book is at 123icefish.com. I made sure to grab that URL. That's another tip I have, is to keep it simple for people. A lot of people think like, oh, I should just have like one name and then sell all my books under that one name, which might work for some, but just for ease of people finding the book, they can just search for the title, and it's literally 123icefishing.com. Keep it simple, and they've had no trouble finding it. So
I think that's a great way to go about it.
So I can get it. Yes.
I love it. Well, again, appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you talking about the book and educating all of our viewers about the technology behind publishing by yourself, and also giving us a little bit more insight into the world of ice fishing as well. It's something we enjoy up here in Minnesota, and unfortunately, there are also parts of the country that don't get to partake in that activity every year.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, if anyone ever wants to come up ice fishing, you just come here to Minnesota, and I'd be glad to give you a tour of the ice. And Kevin, you got to come with me sometime.
I know this is going to shock you, actually. And really, honestly, I don't ever know if I told you this, but I've actually never ice fished before in my entire life.
That's okay.
Isn't that crazy?
No, I don't think it's that crazy.
I'm learning stuff from the book.
That's right. I got to send you a copy. You'll learn a lot about the different kinds of fish in our waters, but I want to take you out and just allow you to catch your own crappie, and then we'll fillet it and we'll fry it up and eat it on the ice. Well,
deal. I totally accept the invite. That'll be so fun. I can't wait. We'll wait till it gets a little bit colder, but I'm down for it.
There's about 12 inches of ice right now. So
is there? Oh, okay.
In some places, yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thanks again so much for joining me. And again, we'll have all the information for you. We've got it right here on the YouTube page, but also kevintalkstech.com. Thanks so much again for joining, Jenny, and great to see you again.
Always good to see you, Cakes, Kevin.
Cakes is good. Cakes is good. I love cakes. Awesome. Well, good to see you.